energy and effort that they have been putting towards into making the playoffs this past month to 2 months. Now, with the playoff berth all but clinched for the Minnesota Wild, there has been more talk now into what is the long-term plan or future at the head coach position for this team. Currently, we have been operating under interim head coach, and I hate the word interim. Either you're doing the head coaching job or you're not doing the head coaching job, and if you are, you shouldn't have an asterisk like the word interim attached to the front of your title. I'm sorry. But in the spirit of Peter Griffin, that really grinds my gears. I mean, think about that. Could you imagine if they did that to players? Like, imagine if they did, if the next time a starting quarterback, like let's say this last year, Tony Romo went out with season-ending injury, or big injury, once and then twice again on a short-lived comeback. But anyway, Tony Romo is your quarterback, okay? Could you imagine if when Brandon Weeden and Matt Castle were in there playing for him, if they would have referred to him as, all right, today for the Dallas Cowboys, lining up under center, we've got interim quarterback Matt Castle. Because he's not the real guy. You know, he just kind of got the job because of crummy circumstances. Like, why don't they do that with the players? You know? I mean, all it is, really, if you think about it, is a way for the teams to say, this is the guy doing the head coaching work, but see the interim there? That means we don't have to pay him what we would pay anyone else to do it. You know? It's ridiculous. I don't like it. It bothers me. But anyway, a lot of talk here in Minnesota on what does Torchetti need to do to get the job full-time, you know, long-term, sign a new contract at the end of this season. Has he already earned said contract? What should said deal be? If he hasn't earned it yet, what criteria should we have that will make or break, you know, and we'll base this decision off of? Does he have to win at least a playoff game, a playoff series, 2 playoff series? Just not get embarrassed in the playoffs. You know, where are we at with Torchetti and our assessment of the job he's done thus far, and, you know, is he the guy that we bring in to continue to lead this franchise forward next year and hopefully the years after that? In my opinion, IMO, John Torchetti should absolutely 100% be brought back to coach, be the official head coach of the Minnesota Wild next season. And in my opinion, it should be a 3-year contract. Basically, you know, a prove-it/buffer year. With room then to renegotiate the following year or two based off of, you know, all possible outcomes for all said parties involved. That's what I think should happen based off of what I've seen right now, and I don't think there's only one thing that could even possibly make me rethink that or second guess that, and I don't think it's going to happen, but the only thing that could happen that would make me change my stance on that is if the Wild were to come out in the first round of the playoffs and get swept ugly. I mean, I'm not talking about like 4 one-goal games that went into overtime or came down to the final couple minutes of regulation and we're back and forth. You know, no, I'm talking about like a bunch of 3-0, 4-1, 4-2, 5-2, you know, 4 of those games. That's what I'm talking. If the Wild came out in the first round of the playoffs and just laid as big of a turd as a hockey team can possibly lay in a best-of-7 series, that is the only thing that would make me question my stance on Torchetti and whether or not he should become the full-time coach of this team. I really feel like I've seen enough up to this point to feel confident and comfortable with signing him to anywhere from a 2 to 4 year deal. Even if it was a 1 year deal, I guess, yeah, but still, like, you don't want those eggshells for both the players and the coaches. You want everybody coming into the season next year, players and coaches alike, and front office and fans, to feel like, we know who we are, we know what we should be, and none of us have to be constantly looking over our shoulder and worried about the job that we're getting on the grade we're getting on our job performance, on a daily basis. That's important. It's beneficial. However, in the world of sports, when it comes to players or coaches, you really don't know what you have with anyone until you get them on the big stage, under the bright lights, with all the eyes watching and all the chips in the middle of the table. That is when you find out what you've got for a head coach. That's when you find out what you've got for star players. That's when you find out what you've got for role players. That's when you find out what you've really truly got for everything in every sport, not just hockey. I say that because that is why I feel the timing of everything, with the not, naming him permanent head coach or signing him to a new deal or announcing anything or working on any of that yet. I support that completely. Everybody is going about the steps in the process the right way. I just hope that, at the end of the first round, end of the second round, end of the conference finals, end of the finals, whenever the Wild are done playing hockey this year, that they went out playing a good competitive series, win or lose, and then that solidifies John Torchetti coming back and leading this team as coach for at least the next 1 or 2 years. And barring success, continued success, look for him to, like I said, he'd sign about a 2 or 3 year deal, and then 1 or 2 years into it, if it's going really good, he'll sign a big extension. And if it's not going good, then he'll be gone like Yo was, and we'll start it all over again. That's what we're hoping to avoid. And I think that just, like I said, you gotta wait until everybody shows what they got. Not just Torchetti, even a lot of players on this team need to prove themselves come playoff time now and say, no, I'm someone you can count on to help this franchise win now and for the next several years, or no, my name is Thomas Vanek and you're never going to get squat out of me with any sort of consistency, and just the idiocy of you even still employing me is somewhat of an embarrassment to your team. But I don't know, was that too harsh? I don't know. I think the last little bit of NHL hockey we're going to talk here, before moving on to just a little quick bit of college Division I men's hockey, get you up to speed on where that tournament is at. But let's get a clear understanding, or as clear at least as we can as of right now, as I'm recording this, on the NHL playoff picture and standings. Now, the Wild, as we've been talking about this whole time, currently are in the 8th and final playoff spot in the Western Conference. When I say 8th and final playoff spot, sorry NHL, I mean second and bottom wild card spot. We are 4 points behind the top wild card spot, the number 1 top wild card spot, and that is the Nashville Predators. We each have, like I said, 5 games to go if you count tonight's games. The Predators are 4 points ahead of us. They have 91, we have 87. So that is simply a 2-game swing. We win 2, they lose 2. That's 4 points. So it is very possible, although I'm not, to me it really doesn't even matter whether we get, which one we get. And honestly, I'd rather get the 8 seed, because it looks right now like the bottom of the 2 wild cards will play the winner of the Central Division, who would be the number 1 overall seed in the West. That will be either the Dallas Stars or the St. Louis Blues. Both are tied with 101 points each. The top wild card spot should get the worst of the two division winners, record-wise at least, or points-wise. And that right now, it looks like it will either be the Anaheim Ducks or the LA Kings. Both very tough teams, tough matchups, especially the Ducks, who right now have a 1-point lead on the Kings for the Pacific Division crown. So if that holds to form and either the Stars or Blues get the number one seed and the bottom wild card, then I would prefer the Wild to be that team. I think the Wild can beat the Stars in round one. I think the Wild can beat the Blues in round one. We did it last year. Now, I also think that the Wild can beat the Kings in round one if we get them. But man, playing the Ducks in round one, I do not think that's a good matchup for the Wild. And the Ducks were my Stanley Cup representative from the Western Conference in my preseason hockey picks, which so far look like the most brilliant thing I've ever predicted in my life, probably because I stole half of it from my hockey expert. Thanks, Iceberg. But I just do not feel good about the Wild's chances in the opening round of the playoffs if we are in fact going up against the Mighty Ducks. So I'm very cool with us staying in the bottom wild card spot, taking on the winner of Stars or Blues for whoever gets the Central Division. Again, they're each tied with 101 points. The Blackhawks pretty much locked in to that third playoff spot from the Central Division. However, they have 95 points and are only 4 points up on the Predators. So if the Blackhawks got hot and the Predators got cold, you could see the Blackhawks drop down to that top wild card spot. But very unlikely that they could make up a 6-point difference in 5 games with both the Stars and Blues to surpass either one of those. The Avalanche are on the outside, 5 points on the outside of the playoff picture looking in. They have 5 games to go, and they, like I said, are 5 points behind the Wild with 87, Avalanche with 82. So that's a 3-game swing out of 5 there in order for the Avalanche to get back ahead of the Wild. And I want to say that the Wild have ensured any and all possible tiebreaker scenarios with the Colorado Avalanche should it come down to that. And then locked into your third and final spot in the Pacific Division, but only 3 points behind second and 4 points behind first, still with a chance to move up in the playoffs, but no chance to move down whatsoever, would be the San Jose Sharks in the Pacific. Then moving over to the, what do we got here? Moving over to the East, East and West. We've got the Capitals playing for nothing. They have clinched the 1 seed, did it a while back. They have 114 points, leading the Metropolitan Division. We have the Rangers behind them with 95 and the Penguins behind them with 94 points. Then we go to the top of the Atlantic Division, for our next 3 teams. It would be the Lightning sitting at the top with 93 points, tied with the Panthers, who have been on top for most of the last couple months. They also have 93 points. And then the Bruins and Red Wings battling for that third and final spot third and final divisional berth out of the Atlantic. Currently the Bruins have 88 points, 1 game up on the Red Wings with 87. So that would put our wild card picture for the East with the Islanders as the top wild card right now with 91 points and 75 games played, the least of any team in the league here. Almost all of them have 77, some have 76. The Oilers have played 79 games. Hockey, NHL, you crack me up always. It never ceases. But Islanders top wildcard. They're Flyers, 2 points behind them with 89 points for the second wildcard. And then the loser of the Red Wings Bruins battle for that third spot is currently the Red Wings would be the ones missing out, and they're in fact 2 points behind the Flyers there. So that is your Western Conference and your Eastern Conference NHL playoff pictures, as well as your Minnesota Wild report and current state of the state of hockey, according to yours truly, Scotty Ball, as done on Balls on Ice on Fire. Yeah. All right, so I don't know if we put this one out or not. Well, we're not quite there yet, but We're done talking NHL hockey. Let's get that little bit of college